Hello everyone, it's Theme Park Avenue, I'm Eric. Today I'm ranking every roller coaster at Busch Gardens Tampa. Busch Gardens Tampa has 10 roller coasters, and as it's my home park, I've been on them many times. So I think I'm qualified to do this ranking. Let's jump right in. Number 10 is Air Grover. This is a zero kiddie coaster, and there's not a whole lot else to say about it. I guess I should say junior coaster technically. It's fun. It's not as long as some of the other junior coasters in the area, such as Woody Woodpecker's Nut House coaster, but I find it a bit more thrilling. It's a good way to get young thrill seekers into it. I think it's a pretty fun roller coaster, and I'll admit, I still ride it pretty often when I go to the park to this day. If I had to give it an arbitrary number score, I would say this is a probably 3 out of 10 ride. 3 out of 10 because it's a good kiddie coaster, but not much else. Number 9 is Sand Serpent. Sand Serpent's not great. As far as Wild Mouse coasters go, it's near the bottom, but not awful. I think the turns are not as painful as they used to be, but this ride just doesn't do a whole lot. The forces aren't as strong as others. The drops are somewhat lackluster as far as Wild Mouse coasters go, and it's a fine family coaster, but the most fun thing about it is the brush that you go by. When I say brush, I mean there's some sort of brush on the left side of the lift hill. I'm not quite sure why it exists, but it's kind of fun that it's there. This one's number score would probably be a 4 out of 10. Number 8 is Tigris. Tigris is a new premier ride Skyrocket 2, and compared to Superman Ultimate Flight at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom, it's pretty awful. This has moved down the ranks recently. I used to think it was a pretty decent ride, but now I just don't like it that much. Let's talk about the good. The launches are somewhat powerful, at the very least the last one is. You get really strong airtime when you get all the way up the hill and you clear it. If you like hang time, you'll probably somewhat enjoy the really slow inversion at the top. And it's a fairly intense ride overall. That said, I will say the issue really resides in the restraints for the most part. They are some of the worst restraints I've experienced. They're very cramped, and the experience of hang time I find quite painful on this ride. You'll hit your head in a few places, and it's just not a super enjoyable ride. Its pacing is more muddled than the other Skyrocket 2 I've been on, and it's a very short ride as well. So overall, while it used to be probably number 5 out of 9 roller coasters, it's now number 8 out of 10 at the park, and I don't think it's a very good ride. For a number score, I'd probably go 5.5 or 6 out of 10. We'll lean toward the 6 to be a little nice. Number 7 is Scorpion. The oldest operating coaster at the park, this Schwarzkopf Looper was my first roller coaster, and I still like it. I think it's really intense. The vertical loop is quite strong, and the pacing just is not muddled ever. This thing does not let up, honestly, and I consider putting it higher on the list. The only issue is the final helix, and honestly just the finale as a whole, is a bit bumpier and harder to enjoy. And they kind of got rid of this large bush that made the helix seem a lot more like a near-miss element. But overall, it's still a really strong ride. And honestly, it's possibly the most intense Schwarzkopf coaster I've been on. So it's a pretty good one. I'd give it a 6.5 out of 10. Number 6 is Cobra's Curse. This family coaster is one of my favorite spinning coasters. It's second only to Time Traveler, actually. And one thing I love about it is the theme. It adds quite a bit. The queue is fun to walk through, the Snake King statue is impressive, and the way they incorporate the ride into the area next to Montu and nearby the safari is fun. In terms of forces, it's a solid ride as well. I like the forward section. The spinning section can sometimes just be really unique. When you're spinning on some of the overbank turns, that's where you get the most sort of weightlessness. I wouldn't call it airtime, but it's just a very different experience, and I love that. The only issue I have with the ride is that the backwards section is pretty weak, and just feels like a gimmick. You go backwards and go through one tiny helix, and then you just go lift hill for a while. So I kind of wish they just stuck with going to the spinning for that part, but overall, it's a very fun ride, and I would give it a 7 out of 10. Number 5 is Cheetah Hunt. Cheetah Hunt is barely above Cobra's Curse now. Used to be a pretty big gap, but after my most recent rides, It is a really, really family-oriented roller coaster compared to what I remember. I understand if you like it, but I don't quite get how it's ranked so high for some. Many would say it's number 2 right now at the park. But here are my thoughts. The best things in terms of forces are the airtime you get going up the Windcatcher Tower, and the strong forces you get going down, and the one final ejector hill. The rest of it is very meandering, though I guess the launches are fairly powerful. And I understand this one's supposed to kind of be you're going through the entire park, and it's a very unique experience. The way they built it is impressive. That said, it is called the Cheetah Hunt, so I expected a better sense of speed. Similar to something like Superman the Ride at Six Flags New England. I feel like that one, while it goes through a large area of the park and gives you a sort of going around traveling experience, it keeps that sense of speed, similar to Millennium Force in a way, that makes it a simultaneously thrilling and fun experience touring the park. Cheetah Hunt doesn't have that thrilling aspect quite as much. I'll also say the restraints are not great, but the ride is still smooth, it's still very fun, and I like it, but the lack of forces, I have to say, makes it less appealing to my thrill side compared to 4 other great roller coasters. But I will still give this one an 8 out of 10. Number 4 is Kumba. The first B&M on this list. I think the B&Ms are great and better than Cheetah Hunt. Kumba is definitely an excellent ride. The first half is intense and fun. The 0G roll is an insane inversion. And I also like the vertical loop and the Cobra rolls. This ride can sometimes be rough, but I feel this year it's been running better than ever. The worst part is the iconic corkscrews. The corkscrews don't pull great forces, but they do pull great roughness. And I just think corkscrews in general are not my favorite inversion. Maybe that's just me, but I feel that part of the ride is the bumpiest, and by the end when you're going through the tunnel, it loses a lot of speed, and pretty much turns into Cheetah Hunt to an extent. That said, the first half is strong, much stronger than Cheetah Hunt, and I think it's a great ride, and I would probably give this one an 8.5 out of 10. Number 3 is Sheikra. Sheikra is underrated. Let's start with that. As far as dive coasters go, it might be the best. I haven't done that many, granted, but everything from the first drop to the really fun hang time you get on the dive loop, to the second drop being almost as powerful as the first even, to the fun water splash. Every element does something, even though there's not a whole lot of them. It's a quality over quantity thing for the specific elements, and the ride has a great sense of speed. Simply put, it's fun. Dive coasters are called forceless, but I think they are not. I understand that they are technically a quote-unquote GP magnet, because the drop is scary being held there, but I love the ride, everything from its presentation to its forces. It's an absolute blast, and was my favorite roller coaster in the park for quite a while. I would definitely give it an 8.5 out of 10 as well. Number 2 is Montu. Montu is a phenomenal ride. One of the best inverts out there. Second favorite to Banshee for me personally, and it does not let up. This ride is blisteringly intense. Possibly the most intense B&M coaster, period. You don't get terrible foot numbness like other inverts, but you still get excellent forces. The vertical loop is already a strong inversion, but then you get to the Batwing. The Batwing is the most intense moment on the ride, and probably the most intense moment in the park, with an exception I'll get to. The way the ride kind of weaves into these troughs that are themed to Egyptians, I think that was also really well done. The ride's presentation is top notch, though I do prefer the sandy support color they used to have, and I love the ride. Its pacing is impeccable, even with the brake run halting it a little bit, but I don't even mind that. You can sometimes get airtime on this one. Back row is the way to go, but any row is great, and Montu is a fantastic ride. I would give this one a 9 out of 10. But number 1 had to be Iron Gwazi. Iron Gwazi is not just my favorite roller coaster in the park, it is my favorite roller coaster in the world. I've been on quite a few, but none are as much of an adrenaline rush as this one. The first drop, even though it's only 1 foot taller than Steel Avengers at Cedar Point, which the ride is often compared to, even by myself, but it feels much taller. and much steeper and faster. I just think it's a whole lot better. And by a whole lot, I mean barely, to the point where I'm not even sure I made the right choice. But I just love this ride. The airtime that follows on the Outer Bank Hill is just as good as Steel Vengeance, but then after that, there was nothing conventional about this ride. Some complain that RMCs are all the same, but this one, after that Outer Bank, is nothing like any other. The death roll is insane. Favorite inversion I've ever experienced. The wave turn is nuts. Every airtime moment throws you like crazy. The double down especially is a surprising and strong one. I love that, and the ride, even though it's not as long as Steel Vengeance, I think it feels very long and fulfilling, and even when you really halt at the brake run, I don't mind. I feel like I had a great experience, and it's one of the most perfect roller coasters I've been on, and that's why it had to be my favorite. Definitely my number one at Busch Gardens Tampa, no doubt. And for a number score, I definitely would give it a 10 out of 10. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this ranking of Busch Gardens Tampa's roller coasters. Comment down below if you want me to do the number score for all of them in the future, because I definitely could do that. Subscribe for more theme park content. I'll see you next time.